G'day, Shane Dowling here from the website and YouTube channel, Kangaroo Court of Australia. Now, I did an interview last week in relation to Kevin Rudd and his connection to Jeffrey Epstein, and I did that with Robert Cameron from the radio station 94.7 The Pulse, which is in Geelong, Victoria, Australia. And I'll play that interview now, and I'll put a picture of Robert Cameron up on the screen. I'm an independent journalist, and I'm 100% crowdfunded from viewers like yourself, so if you enjoy the interview, please consider making a donation. The links for the donation are below this video on YouTube and also on my website. And I'll play the interview now.
Welcome back to Wednesday Front Page 94.7 The Pulse. As I said before the break, the ripple effect of the Epstein files is coming right across the Pacific and affecting some big names relevant to the Australian political scene. And I know a lot of people don't regard the Epstein files with too much seriousness because it's happening in America and we don't care about it, but we do need to care about it because it does potentially affect us, and it certainly should be investigated. And a man who loves nothing more than a good investigation from Kangaroo Court, Shane Dowling's coming back to the Pulse. Shane, good morning and welcome back.
How are you going? It's actually Kangaroo Court of Australia. I thought I'd just
chuck that little bit in on the end because, yeah, you're quite right, because it is important Australian issues, and you've been doing some digging around, and it is an issue that, as I said, while it's way over there and it's in the news, but you think, oh, well, it doesn't really matter to us. But when Australians are involved, as I'm sure it would have shocked the British continent with a member of the royal family heavily involved and another senior English politician being forced to resign under a cloud of indifference, if you like, it potentially can have the same effect on Australian politics from what you've been digging up.
Oh, for sure. Look, you said a senior UK politician, the UK ambassador to the US, Lord Peter Mendelsohn, and that's causing the UK Prime Minister a lot of grief at the moment. He was forced to resign in September 2025, the UK ambassador to the US. And that's because he had concealed his true relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And why it's giving the Prime Minister a lot of grief at the moment is because of the vetting process that was used to appoint Lord Peter Mendelsohn to the position, a UK ambassador to the US. That was fairly flawed, apparently. Well, people are disputing what was done and what was said and what was known. And I think that the same can be said for Kevin Rudd, who was Australia's ambassador to the US until March. He'd been in that role since 2023, I think. But I believe, and it's my belief anyhow, that his connection to Jeffrey Epstein is part of the reason, is the main reason, and probably the sole reason that he's resigned. And it mightn't just be his connection to Jeffrey Epstein as such, but his connection to other people who are in a lot of trouble in Norway, Terje Rod Larsen and Thorbjørn Jagland, the former Prime Minister of Norway. They're both, well, one's been charged with corruption, Jagland is, and Terje Rod Larsen and his wife are under investigation for corruption in relation to their connections to Jeffrey Epstein.
I think it's a good point to just pause and reflect a little. Now, when we talk about Jeffrey Epstein, most people think about the sexual nature of charges against him, but what the Epstein files that have been released certainly now finding that it outside of the sexual assault and trafficking of minors, there's a lot of political connection being involved, and certainly in this particular case, what you found is more that political side of things than suggesting that Kevin Rudd may have been involved on the sexual dealing with minors nature of the things, but that's probably has more implications on Australia as a state and its relationship with the US and other parts of the world, which is probably every bit as concerning as the other side of the allegations.
Well, one point there, and just to confirm what you said, there's no evidence, not a shred of evidence that I've seen that says Kevin Rudd has been involved in anything sexual in relation to Jeffrey Epstein. There is one email suggesting he might be invited to Epstein Island But beyond that, there's nothing. But what there is a lot of emails suggesting that connection, political connection and financial connection between Kevin Rudd, the people he's dealing with, his friends and fellow associates, and Jeffrey Epstein. Probably the Greens have called for a government inquiry in relation to the Australian politicians and business people and their connections to Jeffrey Epstein. I've just published an article on it, and there's no doubt in my mind that what the Greens are really referring to is Kevin Rudd from the political perspective, and also almost certainly Rupert Murdoch in relation to the business side. And there's other people named in there as well. People are jumping up and down and saying Paul Keating. Paul Keating's only really named in there because his daughter, Catherine Keating, had a long-standing relationship with Epstein, and there's thousands of documents in there with her, or over 1,000. I don't know if there's thousands, but definitely over 1,000 of her correspondence with Epstein. Now, the reason we should be throwing our weight behind the Greens and supporting the call for a government inquiry is, I'll give you one example. It's probably the most powerful example. There's an email between Jeffrey Epstein and Turge Rod Larson, who's an associate and a friend of Kevin Rudd's. They worked at the International Peace Institute for quite a while, quite a few years, and I have no doubt Turge Rod Larson. Well, actually, I'll start from the email because that tells the story. In 2013, when Kevin Rudd was still Prime Minister, June 27, 2013, Epstein sent Turge Rod Larson an email that says, "Rudd will only be in power a few months. Do not wait." That's what he's saying to Turge Rod Larson. Turge Rod Larson replies, "I know." Well, what does that mean? Did they get a favour off Kevin Rudd? I did another article and I put quid pro quo. Was there a deal done? Now, that by itself, people might be dismissive. Okay, that's back in 2013. Kevin Rudd was Prime Minister. Now, here's a key point. That was from Epstein to Turge Rod Larson. Turge Rod Larson was the president of the International Peace Institute at the time in June 2013. I think it was in September 2013 was the election where they lost, Labor. Abbott was elected. By 2014, in less than 12 months, Kevin Rudd was a director of the International Peace Institute with Turge Rod Larson. So it was this, and that directorship of a position in a position like that enabled Kevin Rudd to network globally. And as it turned out, Jeffrey Epstein was a major donor of the International Peace Institute. So it raises that simple question: did Kevin Rudd do anything for them when he was Prime Minister? One. And two, was it a quid pro quo, a favour for a favour, given Kevin Rudd was appointed as a director and less than 12 months later at the International Peace Institute, where Turge Rod Larson was the president. So that one email raises a lot of questions. Now, back in 2020, it all hit the fan at the International Peace Institute, where by that time Kevin Rudd had become the chairperson of the International Peace Institute. And it hit the fan because it's been exposed that the International Peace Institute had been taking the big donations off Jeffrey Epstein, one, and two, that Turge Rod Larson had received a personal loan from Jeffrey Epstein of $130,000. Now, the donations they got from Jeffrey Epstein totaled, I think it was $650,000, something like that. But that all hit the fan, and Kevin Rudd ultimately did an interview with the media here in Australia, specifically Channel 7. And he tried to blame Murdoch. He started answering questions, then all of a sudden he sort of pivots. He does the deflection routine, and he tries to blame it. Oh, that's all Murdoch. All this is Murdoch. Murdoch's name is in the Epstein file. Blah, blah, blah. And as the journalist points out in the interview, it was about a 2 or 3 minute, well, not a total interview, but a 3-minute story, that all the media had been reporting on it. It had nothing to do with Murdoch at all. The fact that Kevin Rudd tried to reflect points to him having something to hide back in 2020. So you've got all those issues now if you start putting the pieces together, Rudd blaming Murdoch. Now, what I haven't covered just then is he refused to answer Norwegian media questions for 12 months. When it hit the fan in 2020, what people didn't realise is that Norwegian media had been asking Rudd questions for over 12 months, but he was ducking and weaving or refusing to answer questions in relation to the Epstein donations to the International Peace Institute. Now, when they came up 12 months later in 2020, they came up with a loan to Turge Rod Larsen, which forced Turge Rod Larsen to resign. Then Kevin Rudd put out a media release saying how when they found out the Epstein donations had been going to the International Peace Institute, they stopped them and they donated the exact equivalent amount to an International Child Sexual Abuse Institute or charity. But they didn't put out the press release for 12 months and they stayed silent for 12 months. So that raises more questions. Why did Rudd stay silent until it hit the media again, or hit the media, Australian media? Now, Rudd's name is all over the Epstein files, including meetings and visits at Epstein's house. Rudd says he knows nothing, has never spoken to or met Epstein. Well, that really doesn't pass the pub test when you put it together with him trying to blame Murdoch, refusing to answer Norwegian media questions for over 12 months. What is Rudd hiding? Now, Rudd, I've written and published another number of articles. I normally do a video podcast an article, and I've done that over the last sort of 6 to 12 months. And Rudd has been writing to Google and YouTube and saying, take them down, they're defamatory. So I wrote to Rudd's lawyers and said, can I have a copy of the letter you sent to YouTube? A concerns notice, it's called, in defamation law. And can I have a copy of the concerns notice? So they ignore me, they won't send me nothing. There's nothing defamatory in what I'm saying because it's all in the Epstein files. Then Kevin Rudd has been paying YouTube Friendly Geordies to run a protection racket and attack me and my credibility. Friendly Geordies attacks a lot of people on behalf of the Labor Party, attacking them and their credibility, is doing that in this case. Now, they're just some of the things, some of the evidence. The bottom line is the Greens are right. The Australian government need to have a public inquiry to put this all to bed because the officials that we have representing us, the business people, you have to wonder, has there been compromisation in the past or are they compromised now in the future? That's all over the US media. Questions are continually being asked about Trump and others in the US.
Yeah, Shane, what's intriguing, I suppose, all this stuff would normally be all over front page of newspapers, but with Rupert Murdoch and companies owning a fair chunk of the Australian media landscape, I imagine that there would be some reluctance to make a big song and dance about this if the connection to Murdoch himself in some way, because he's mentioned several times in the Epstein files as well, whether that may be the reason why we're not seeing it splattered across mainstream media.
Well, his phone numbers, and that was known a few years ago, 3, 4, 5 years ago, I did an article on it because it was all over the media. He's in the Black Book, Jeffrey Epstein Black Book, hit the media, New York Times, and Rupert Murdoch's name and numbers were in there. So you have to ask, what were they doing in Jeffrey Epstein's Black Book? And it's not just Rupert Murdoch, a lot of his associates and friends are in there. It's well known that Rupert Murdoch has a strong connection to Israel. Former Prime Minister of Israel, I can't think of his name. He was a very close associate with Jeffrey Epstein. So you've got a lot of people. The bottom line is if all the Epstein files were released, a lot of people would be in a lot of trouble. Without a doubt, that's played a part, I think, in them not reporting on all the facts, all the evidence. They have done a fair bit, the old media, but they can still dig deep if they wanted to and go back and review. I think in 2020, Kevin Rudd was in a lucky position when he blamed Murdoch. Oh, this is all Murdoch, because I fell for it, and a lot of people would have fallen for it too, because at that time, Kevin Rudd had the Murdoch Royal Commission website and campaign going strongly. He was demanding a Royal Commission into Rupert Murdoch and their influence on Australian politics. He got over 500,000 people signing his petition. And so when Kevin Rudd blamed Murdoch, people, including myself, thought, oh, yeah, it probably is Murdoch, he's just getting back at Rudd. But then I started having a dispute with Friendly Geordie, so I started having a closer look at various things, and one of the things I started having a closer look at was Friendly Geordie's connection to Kevin Rudd. And that started me having a better look at Kevin Rudd and Jeffrey Epstein and revisiting it. Sometimes you might write a story, but it mightn't be for a few years later that more evidence, more information comes to hand. It wasn't until I actually came across the Norwegian media articles from 2019 and 2020 did I realise that Kevin Rudd had been ducking and weaving and refusing to answer media questions for the Norwegian media for over 12 months about the donations that the International Peace Institute had received while he was director and chairman from Jeffrey Epstein. And then you put the pieces together. Kevin Rudd only put out a media release when it hit the media, when Norwegian media found out a second time that Thorvald Larsen, who was the president of the International Peace Institute, had personal loans. So that forced his hand. Then he puts out a media release 12 months after the fact that the media first raised it. About, as soon as we found out that we were getting a donation from Epstein, we stopped the donations and we donated that money to an international child sex charity. But why did he wait 12 months to put out the press release, and why did he say nothing to the Norwegian media for 12 months?
Shane, you probably had a fair bit of experience in this. It's not just you pushing it. If the Greens have now started to talk about it in Parliament, based on the fact that both the Norwegian and English British governments have moved to put some people or make some people accountable for their actions around the Epstein files, unlike what's happening in America, are you confident that the Australian government will be forced to look deeper into this?
No, look, have a good look at the US and even to the UK to a degree. But in the US, you've got Trump putting up a brick wall, all these files are coming out, all the pictures, everyone knows what's going down, and Trump's still standing there saying nothing to see here, which is a global joke. It's a joke right around the world. And because of that, and you look at other countries too, I think the UK, the British Prime Minister is trying to stonewall it. I haven't been following that too closely, like on a day-to-day basis, but from what I can briefly tell, he's trying to stonewall it as well, and that's causing him a lot of trouble. Now, I don't think the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, and the government would want an inquiry, because that leads back to what did they know or didn't know in relation to Kevin Rudd and his connection to Jeffrey Epstein before they appointed him US ambassador. This all came out, a lot of it came out in 2020, the donations to the International Peace Institute. And Kevin Rudd continued as a chairperson until 2022. So what did they know when they appointed him ambassador in 2023? So they're not going to want an inquiry which could ultimately embarrass the government in relation to their appointment of Rudd. But there's a whole heap of things at play that could force their hand. Number one, there's another 3 million files, at least 3 million files in the Epstein files. Now, if more of them are released, that could be a big problem for Kevin Rudd and potentially the Australian government. One. Two, because there's the criminal charges and criminal investigations going on in Norway, and I believe France as well, in relation to Thorvald Larsen and Jagland, well, Rudd's name might even pop up in the evidence there that the Norwegian and the French authorities get. They might even want to question Rudd in relation to, say, Thorvald Larsen and his time as the president of the International Peace Institute. That's how Rudd became involved in the first place as far as Norway press were concerned. They weren't investigating Kevin Rudd. They were investigating Thorvald Larsen. He was a president because he was Norwegian. Norwegian diplomat, a Norwegian politician, I think, at some stage, but Jagan was definitely the Prime Minister, so he was a politician. So they were investigating him, and that's why they put, as President of the International Peace Institute, that's why they put questions to Kevin Rudd, the Chairman of the International Peace Institute, as you do. If you're investigating a CEO or senior management, you put the question to the chairperson or the CEO if there's someone lower down. And that's how the questions got put to him. And because he didn't answer for over 12 months, that raises a question mark against him. So that's how he's gotten involved. So his name could pop up again somewhere, and further evidence might come to hand, and that might force the Australian government's hand.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. We'll keep an eye on it because while the focus has certainly been on the Epstein files are a daily news article, and you're quite right about it's just become a long-running joke now how they're being handled. But when all of a sudden Australians are brought into play, we take a little bit more notice. So we'll certainly keep an eye on this. And Shane, thank you again for your bloodhound-type journalism. I really enjoy it. You've unearthed some very important stuff, and you've certainly brought accountability to some. We've still got a long way to go. I think there's a fair bit more for you to work on, I imagine. And I suppose as each day you wake up, you find a new path to follow.
Yeah, exactly right. I've started looking at Turds Rod Larson a little bit more. Turns out this one thing, and I didn't deviate to him much, but just to show his close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and then his relationship with Rudd. Jeffrey Epstein, a couple days before wrote a new bill, and he donated $5 million each to Turds Rod Larson's children. So that just shows you how close their relationship was. And then from there you go to Rudd. I think it's not direct evidence of Rudd, but it just shows you how deep the whole story is going to end up going.
Yeah, and well worth investigating. Thank you again for your time and your work. We will tap in again soon and see what progress you've made. Shane Dowling, thank you very much.
No problem. Talk to you later.
Shane Dowling from the Kangaroo Court of Australia.